Hi everyone, my name is Kelsey and I am the Early Childhood and Youth Training Specialist as well as the Early On Liaison for Michigan Alliance for Families. And I am really excited that you are here to watch this recording of Navigating Early Childhood Special Education or Preschool. I am also the mom of a little one who did have an IFSP and went through that early on process, and then also had an IEP and went through early childhood special education. And I remember being confused and having lots of questions and trying to really build up our village. And I want you to know that we are here for you, that we are part of your village, and we want you to reach out to us. So it could be just coming on our website, checking out some of our resources. Maybe you want to learn more about IEPs or something else, or reaching out to one of our parent mentors. Our parent mentors provide mentoring at no cost to families, and they're here for you. So if you have not reached out to them yet, know that they live in the areas that they cover, and they also have firsthand experience with special education. So they are wonderful to reach out to. And thanks for starting with this webinar, because there's some great information here, and hopefully we can get some of your questions answered. All right, let's get started. Let's take a glance at our agenda today. We are going to start with a discussion on the importance of preschooler development and all the learning that occurs during this time. We'll also talk about Michigan's recent Pre-K for All initiative. Then we'll spend some time on state performance indicators, which help us understand how we are doing in Michigan in terms of the delivery of special education programs and services. That will lead us to a conversation on the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, more commonly referred to as IDEA, which is a federal civil rights law that grants rights and protections to kids with disabilities who either qualify or may qualify for special education services. Next, we will review how eligible students with a disability are entitled to a free, appropriate public education, more commonly referred to as FAPE, through different programs and services. This is a powerful legal right for kids with disabilities who receive special education services. That will bring us to our conversation on the least restrictive environment, more commonly referred to as the LRE, which is a legal requirement that students with disabilities receive their education to the maximum extent appropriate with non-disabled peers. We will also review some resources that may be helpful as you navigate what LRE may look like for your preschooler. We will then center in on Michigan and briefly touch upon the Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Education, MARSE, which outline the state-specific regulations that govern the implementation of special education services under IDEA. These rules provide detailed guidelines for eligibility, evaluations, individualized education programs, and procedural safeguards to ensure special education students receive FAPE. And after all that, we'll finally touch on the Individualized Education Programs, more often referred to as IEPs. We have a ton of IEP-specific information on our website, so we'll review what resources and supports are out there, including your Michigan Alliance for Families Parent Mentor. Lastly, we discuss your rights. Procedural safeguards in special education are legal protections under IDEA that ensure that the rights of students with disabilities and their families are upheld throughout the special education process, including access to evaluations, services, and dispute resolution. Understanding what preschool may look like for your child with an IEP starts with you. It starts with thinking about what kinds of preschools are available in your community. You want to think about how your child learns best and the experiences your child will need in the preschool years to prepare them for kindergarten and the years beyond. It starts with having a vision for your child's life. So what brings us here today? We are here to talk about the importance of preschool and how things may look if your preschooler happens to have an IEP. The knowledge you receive today should help you start to create that vision for your child. Preschool is a critical stage in a child's growth, laying the foundation for cognitive, social, emotional, and physical skills. During these formative years, children develop early language and communication abilities, learning to express themselves and engage in conversations. They also begin to grasp basic concepts of numbers, letters, shapes, and colors, building the foundational skills necessary for academic success. Through exploration and play, preschoolers enhance their problem-solving abilities and foster creativity, learning how to approach challenges with curiosity and resilience. Motor skills also advance significantly as children refine their fine motor abilities through activities like drawing and cutting, while gross motor skills develop through running, jumping, and climbing. Equally important is the social and emotional growth that occurs during preschool years. Children learn to navigate relationships, share, and cooperate with peers, developing essential social skills that will serve them throughout their life. Emotional regulation begins to take shape as preschoolers learn to identify and manage their feelings, understand empathy, and practice patience. Structured routines and group settings help children adapt to following directions, taking turns, and respecting boundaries, preparing them for the transition to formal schooling. Through positive interactions with teachers, peers, and caregivers, preschoolers gain self-confidence and a sense of security, forming a strong foundation for future learning and development. Perhaps you have heard of the term Pre-K for All. Michigan's Pre-K for All initiative aims to provide free, high-quality pre-kindergarten education to all 4-year-olds in the state, regardless of family income. The program offers various options, including full-day and part-day schedules, to accommodate families' diverse needs. Michigan's commitment to providing universal preschool reflects a broader recognition of the critical role early education plays in children's long-term academic and social success. The importance is recognized at a national level as well. We can see this by taking a look at the U.S. Department of Education Office of Special Education Program's 18 indicators that were created to help each state measure and report on their efforts to educate students with disabilities. Each state, such as Michigan, must report their performance on each indicator and their plan to make progress in the State Performance Plan and Annual Performance Report. Each indicator is either a compliance indicator or a results indicator. Compliance indicators have targets of 0% or 100% set by the Office of Special Education Programs. Results indicators have targets set by each state with input from their stakeholders. For today, we are going to look at 3 specific indicators. The 3 that we are discussing are all results indicators. We have Indicator 6, Preschool Educational Environments, which measures the percent of preschool students with an IEP ages 3 through 5 who are enrolled in a regular early education program and receiving their support there, enrolled in a separate classroom, school, or residential facility with their special education provided there, or receiving their special education supports at home. Indicator 7, Preschool Outcomes. These measure the percent of preschool students with an IEP, ages 3 through 5, who demonstrate improved positive social-emotional skills, acquisition, and use of knowledge and skills, and use of appropriate behaviors. Indicator 8, Parent Involvement, which has a section specific to children ages 3 to 5 with disabilities, and it measures the percent of parents with a child receiving special education services who report schools' parent involvement. State performance indicators are important because they provide a framework for assessing and improving the effectiveness of special education programs across states. The indicators ensure accountability by requiring states to measure and report on specific aspects of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act implementation, promoting transparency and driving continuous improvement. When looking at the indicator data, we want to note that the public reporting is typically a year or more behind the collection of it. In other words, it reflects historical data, not current. Special education for preschoolers is designed to support young children that have a disability that adversely impacts their ability to progress in learning and/or participation with age-level peers. These supports and services provide individualized instruction and services tailored to the unique needs of each child, helping them build skills in areas such as communication, motor development, social-emotional behavior, and early academics. To best comprehend the benefits, services, and protections of attending preschool with an IEP, we need to have a firm understanding of IDEA and the Michigan Administrative Rules of Special Education. Let's start with IDEA. IDEA entitles eligible children with disabilities to special education and related services. It's a civil rights law that is composed of 4 parts labeled A through D. Part A of IDEA serves as the introductory section and outlines the purpose, definitions, and guiding principles of the law. Part A sets the legal and philosophical foundation for all other parts of IDEA, ensuring the law's goals are clear and consistent across the nation. It emphasizes equal educational opportunities and accountability. Part B of IDEA focuses on providing special education programs and services to eligible students. Section 619 specifically addresses special education programs and services for preschoolers. Other sections of Part B cover special education programs and services for students kindergarten through high school, or in some circumstances until age 21. Part C of IDEA focuses on helping the family meet the developmental needs of their child. It is also referred to as early intervention. The early intervention program in Michigan is called Early On. In Part C, the family determines the priorities and services are detailed for each child in his or her family in an individualized family service plan. Services are to be provided to the maximum extent feasible in natural environments, including the home or other community locations with infants and toddlers who do not have disabilities. Part D of IDEA focuses on national activities to improve education for children with disabilities. Part D emphasizes research, training, technical assistance, and technology development to ensure ongoing improvement, innovation, and capacity building in the field of special education. Section 619 of IDEA authorizes grants to states, including Michigan, for preschool programs serving children with disabilities. Section 619 is not so much a separate program as it is supplementary funding for services to this age group. Section 619 is important because it reiterates the federal stance that the provision of FAPE in the least restrictive environment, which we will review shortly, are important to the development of children with disabilities. So what is FAPE? FAPE is defined in IDEA. FAPE guarantees the right to a free, appropriate public education to all students with disabilities who qualify for special education services. Let's break that down a bit. What do we mean by free? We mean that special education and related services are provided by public schools at no cost to parents. Schools cannot deny FAPE due to a cost of services. What do we mean by appropriate? We mean that students are entitled to an education that meets their education and disability-related needs. Those needs are documented in a program, the IEP, which is personalized and outlines the type and frequency of special education programs and related services and describes the student's educational goals. Now, appropriate is a word you may hear often. In the context of special education, it means whatever is suitable, fitting, or right for a specific child, given that child's specific needs, strengths, established goals, and the supports and services that will be provided to help the child reach those goals. Therefore, an appropriate education will differ for each child with a disability because it is based on that child's individual needs. Public. This means that children receiving special education programs and related services have a right to receive an education provided by the public school system, including public charters. Lastly, education. The education provided must meet certain standards and should prepare all children for their future, including post-secondary education, employment, and independent living. When providing FAPE, there are certain actions that a school district must take. The district must create an individualized education program, also known as an IEP, so that the child is able to participate in typical expectations and make progress on goals and objectives. Please note, school districts are not required to provide programming based only on parents' requests. The programming and services are an IEP team decision, but as a parent, you are a part of that team. The school district must provide special education services that meet the child's unique needs as outlined in the IEP so that the child can benefit from special education. This includes related services such as speech, occupational therapy, aids, or even transportation. The school district is required to provide the accommodations and modifications determined appropriate by the IEP team. An accommodation could be lowering a coat hook. the use of an assistive technology, such as an iPad that assists with communication. It could be frequent breaks, the use of a fidget, or preferential seating. The school district must also educate the child in the least restrictive environment, which means that the child should be educated as much as appropriate in a typical, regular setting alongside peers without IEPs. And the school district must provide access to the same non-academic and extracurricular activities as peers without disabilities, so that the students are entitled to the same opportunities as the others involved. Let's dive into LRE a little further. In Part B, IDEA references the Least Restrictive Environment, or LRE, which states that each public agency must ensure that, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are non-disabled, and special classes, separate schooling, or other removal of children with disabilities from the regular early childhood program or setting occurs only if the nature or severity of the disability is such that education in a regular childhood program or setting with the use of supplementary aids and services cannot be achieved satisfactorily. In other words, the placement of an individual student with a disability in the least restrictive environment must provide the special education needed by the student, provide for education of the student to the maximum extent appropriate to the needs of the student with other students who do not have disabilities, and be as close as possible to the student's home. Where a student with a disability receives special education and related services is an IEP team decision, and the team must have knowledge of the child and the child's evaluation data to determine the child's placement. Each year, the team, including the parent, should have a conversation on placement and determine the appropriate education designed to meet the student's educational needs. As a parent, you can ask yourself, if my child did not need special education services, where would he or she go to school? What kinds of activities would he or she be in? These types of questions can help to identify the most appropriate education setting. It is important to remember that special education is not a place. While preschoolers who receive special education services may often be referred to as early childhood special education students or ECSE students, there are different preschool settings available. All students are general education students first. So where might that be? On the screen, you will see a diagram of a continuum of placement options. When looking at this diagram, we want to remember that LRE is not a place. It's a principle that guides a child's education program, and it may look different for each child because each child is unique. It is also important to note that a school district is required to have a continuum of placement options to meet the needs of children with IEPs. The continuum is not the menu of options, and LRE should be discussed at the child level in terms of where are children without IEPs participating. Families should make sure that their children's needs are discussed, and students are not just put into placement based on their disability matching a particular environment. If you look at the bottom, you will see a general education environment with no supports or services. At the top, you have a home-based interim alternative education setting, which would be the most restrictive environment. As we continue further up the pyramid from the bottom, the placement is more restrictive, as depicted by the arrow on the left. Toward the right, you'll see another arrow. This represents the number of students, and you'll notice that the number of students decreases as the environment becomes more restrictive. Every Michigan community is unique and looks a little different. The preschool options available in Detroit may look different from those available in Grand Rapids, or those you can find in Iron River. Our communities have different kinds of preschool programs. It is important to do your research and find the preschool programs available in your community. It is also important to note that school districts that do not already operate programs for preschool children without disabilities are not required to initiate those programs solely to satisfy the LRE requirements of IDEA. Districts that do not have a public preschool that can provide all the appropriate services and supports must explore alternative methods to ensure that the LRE requirements are met. This visual continuum can be found on the handouts page, and it's an excellent resource to keep handy, whether that means bookmarking the page, emailing it to yourself, or printing it out and hanging it on your family bulletin board. You may find it helpful to bring and use when discussing different preschool options for your child with your team. Let's look at some of those possible placement options. Let's take a minute to check out a helpful federal resource, Ideas Data Center's Preschool Environment Toolkit. This toolkit lists a variety of educational environments that may be helpful for preschoolers. You can hover over each image to reveal descriptions of the different types of environments and learn more about the funding behind each one, as well as the relationship to Indicator 6, which we reviewed earlier in this presentation. Let's check some examples out. For example, in your community, there could be a preschooler with an IEP attending a public or a state preschool. Maybe this is a 4-year-old with a speech and language delay who's currently in a general education preschool classroom with typically developing peers. The parents are worried that their child may struggle to communicate with peers, leading to social isolation. A goal could be that the student will use 3-word sentences to request items or express needs during classroom activities in 4 out of 5 opportunities as measured by teacher and therapist observation. Services could look like weekly pull-out speech therapy sessions, push and speech support during group activities, or teacher consultation with a speech therapist for targeted strategies. Elsewhere in the community, there may be a 3-year-old diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder who has difficulty with social interactions and sensory processing. The parents could be worried that their child is being overwhelmed by sensory stimuli and not learning coping strategies. This child may be in a self-contained special education preschool classroom, with a goal of participating in structured group activities by remaining seated and attending for 5 minutes with 1 verbal prompt on 4 out of 5 opportunities. Services could be structured teaching methods, occupational therapy twice a week for sensory integration, speech therapy focusing on functional communication skills, or social skills training during structured play. Elsewhere in our community, we may have a 4-year-old with a physical disability requiring mobility aids. Parents could be concerned about their child's safety while transitioning between environments and during physical activities. Maybe the student is part-time in a family childcare home and part-time in a blended classroom that contains students with and without IEPs. A goal could be that the student will independently navigate the classroom environment using a walker in 4 out of 5 opportunities without requiring adult assistance. Services may look like physical therapy in the family childcare home, adaptive equipment provided in both settings, and paraprofessional support in the blended classroom during activities requiring mobility assistance. In our community, we may have a 3-year-old with significant medical needs and a developmental delay. Parents could be concerned about their child's medical stability in a classroom setting, and they want a gradual transition to preschool. Here, placement may look like a home-based instruction with itinerant special education services. A goal could be that the student will imitate a 2-step action, like stacking blocks or knocking them down, during play with a caregiver in 3 out of 5 trials as measured by therapist observation. Services may look like weekly visits from a special education teacher, teletherapy for speech and occupational therapy, and parent training sessions to implement educational strategies. We may also have a 4-year-old with a mild developmental delay and fine motor skills. The parents could be worried about their child keeping up with peers and pre-writing tasks and being labeled as behind. Placement here may be the child attending a community-based daycare preschool, with a goal that the student will independently use scissors to cut along a straight line within 1/4 inch of the line in 4 out of 5 attempts. Services may look like itinerant occupational therapist visits weekly, monthly consultation with the daycare staff by a special education teacher, and use of adaptive tools like pencil grips in the classroom. We could also have a 4-year-old with a moderate developmental delay in language and cognitive skills. The parents could be worried that their child won't be ready for kindergarten and want extra supports with pre-academic skills. This student could be enrolled in a Head Start program that includes peers with diverse abilities and backgrounds. A goal could be that the student will answer what and where questions during story time with minimal prompting in 4 out of 5 opportunities. Services could look like weekly speech therapy sessions within the Head Start classroom, push and support from a special education teacher during literacy and math activities, or maybe even collaboration between the Head Start staff and the special education team to modify activities for accessibility. Elsewhere in our community, we may have a 3-year-old with a mild speech delay. The parents could be worried about the lack of daily social interaction for their child as they are not in a formal preschool program. Placement could be services through walk-in therapy sessions, or maybe the goal is that the student will use age-appropriate consonant sounds and initial word positions during structured activities in 4 out of 5 attempts. Services could be weekly 30-minute speech therapy sessions at the local school district special education office, parent coaching during sessions to carry over strategies at home, and periodic progress monitoring and consultation with the family to adjust the goals and services as needed. We could also have a 3-year-old with a developmental delay impacting their self-help skills. The parents could be concerned that their child will not achieve potty training in time for kindergarten and want consistent support between home and school. This student could be in a self-contained special education preschool classroom with an emphasis on daily living skills. A goal could be that the student will independently use the toilet, including pulling down, up pants, and flushing, with minimal adult prompts in 3 out of 5 opportunities during the school day, as measured by teacher observation and data collection. Services could be daily routines and structured opportunities to practice toileting, occupational therapy once a week to address sensory issues related to toileting, and visual schedules and social stories to support the understanding of potty routines. We may also have a 4-year-old with a fine motor delay impacting their pre-writing skills. This student could be in a Great Start readiness program alongside typically developing peers. Parents may be concerned about transportation logistics and ensuring their child arrives at school safely each day. A goal could be that the student will draw a recognizable circle and cross using appropriate hand positioning in 3 out of 5 trials. Services could be itinerant occupational therapy twice a month to focus on those fine motor skills, classroom adaptations such as providing adaptive scissors and pencil grips, and consultation between the Great Start Readiness Program teacher and occupational therapist to incorporate fine motor activities into daily routines. So what can we take away from all of this? When we think about LRE, it's important to remember that it isn't just a location or a placement. We should be discussing placement in the least restrictive environment at least once a year. Children grow and change, and so do their needs. Those changes should be reflected in their Individualized Education Program. As skills develop or challenges emerge, the type and level of support may need to adjust to ensure the student continues to learn and participate with peers to the greatest extent appropriate. LRE means being a part of what everyone else experiences, learning, playing, and participating alongside peers to the maximum extent possible. It reflects the idea that every student should have meaningful opportunities to engage in daily activities within their school and community with the supports they need to succeed. There is an abundance of research out there related to educating children with disabilities alongside their non-disabled peers together in a high-quality early childhood program. High-quality preschools support children's development, relationships with peers, and a sense of belonging, which is true for children with and without disabilities. It is important to remember that learning together benefits everyone. Let's look at what some of the research reveals. For children with disabilities, research shows improved academic performance. There is a strong relationship between the amount of time spent in general education and achievement in math and reading. Improved self-esteem and social behavior. Studies have found that children with disabilities demonstrated more social interactions with peers with and without disabilities, had larger networks of friends, and were more socially competent compared to children in separate settings. More time spent in a general education classroom, engaged in academically challenging curricula, correlated to less absences from school, fewer referrals for misbehavior, and more post-secondary education and employment options. Research tells us that students with the highest needs can make significant developmental and learning progress. For children without disabilities, research shows improved academic performance and social behavior, greater academic achievement, and increased time engaged academically due to effective instructional practices, such as differentiated instruction or peer tutoring, awareness of the needs of others, and the development of skills necessary to respond to those needs, increased patience with students who learn at different rates. For the community, research shows better ability to assess children's needs and identify barriers, opportunities to learn innovative instructional practices that are beneficial for all students, which can reduce the individual accommodations needed, increase in collaboration among school staff, which can lead to a stronger school community. For the parents, research shows increased acceptance of students with disabilities by non-disabled students and their parents, heightened support of LRE through relationships with local agencies. This could be physical resources, monetary support, or even volunteer services, and greater parental involvement in school activities. Research also shows that where a child with an IEP attends preschool can set the trajectory for the rest of their educational career. The long-term benefits of being educated in a general education classroom include fewer days absent from school, higher test scores, as well as a higher probability of employment and higher earnings. So where are most Michigan preschoolers with an IEP attending preschool? In Michigan, most preschool students with disabilities are not being educated with their typical peers. In 2019, Michigan was in the bottom 10% of states providing services to children with disabilities alongside their peers without disabilities. In 2020, only 1 in 5 preschool children with disabilities received their special education services alongside their same age, typically developing peers. With such low numbers of preschool children with disabilities in typical preschool settings, change is needed as soon as possible. So how do we know action is being taken? At a federal level, I encourage you to review the policy statement on children with disabilities in early childhood programs, issued by the U.S. Department of Education and Health and Human Services in 2023. It emphasizes the importance of providing high-quality educational opportunities for young children with disabilities. It underscores that all children, regardless of ability, should have access to high-quality early learning programs in the LRE alongside their typically developing peers. It calls for eliminating barriers to integrated classrooms, such as inadequate teacher training, resource limitations, or segregated practices. And it encourages collaboration among families, educators, and policymakers to create collaborative environments. It highlights the benefits of educating children with and without disabilities together, which we previously reviewed. The statement also outlines key recommendations, including promoting family engagement. At a state level, I highly encourage you to read over Michigan's Preschool Collective Action Plan, released in March of 2022. This is a strategic initiative aimed at enhancing educational opportunities for preschool-age children across Michigan. It identifies ideal features essential for meeting the needs of all young children within a mixed delivery system. And it outlines specific actions and activities necessary to realize this collaborative vision and address existing barriers. In October 2025, Michigan also released new guidance on preschool and LRE. This document is focused on children in preschool to ensure that IEP teams are aware of the least restrictive environment requirements and how those requirements apply to preschool, and what a preschool continuum may look like and how placement decisions should be made. You can find a copy of these resources on the handouts page. To learn more about what LRE looks like for preschoolers in your local school district, you can attend your community school meetings and ask about LRE for our youngest learners. This could be a Board of Education meeting, a Parent-Teacher Association meeting, or a Parent Advisory Committee meeting. This is also a wonderful way to meet other families who have children with IEPs and see what preschool options may be available. To learn more about what preschool could look like for your child specifically, look to your child's IEP team. And do not be afraid to ask questions and share your opinions. Now that we have discussed LRE, let's move on to the Michigan Administrative Rules for Special Education, also known as MARSE. If we start at the big idea, we can then zoom in a bit and bring our focus to Michigan, where the federal law idea applies and so does MARSE. MARSE defines how federal and state laws will be implemented in Michigan. MARSE defines eligibility for special education services within 13 different categories of disability. You can find your child's special education eligibility within the IEP. I encourage you to visit the eligibility page on our website to learn more about the different categories and their unique qualifications. MARSE provides the regulatory foundation for the delivery of special education services in Michigan, ensuring that eligible children receive the support they need to succeed. These rules are aligned with IDEA and offer specific guidelines for eligibility, assessments, and the development of IEPs. IDEA explains the requirements, MARSE is the details of how we do it in Michigan. And that brings us to IEPs. So when can you discuss LRE with your team? Anytime. LRE should always be in the back of our mind, but we especially want to ask questions, share our concerns, and discuss the least restrictive environment during IEP meetings. LRE should be in the front of our mind when we build out each component of the IEP, developing the present level, determining the goals, documenting the appropriate accommodations and services. A comprehensive IEP should be made up of many different components, all focused on supporting the individualized needs of the child. For this reason, every IEP will look a little different. To learn more about engagement, visit the Increasing Engagement and Independence in General Education tool found on our handouts page. This tool was created by Michigan Alliance for Families and the statewide Autism Resources and Training Project to provide clarity for families and promote collaboration. There you will find suggested answers to common questions, resources for families, and supplemental resources for extended research and information you may explore further. It also provides possible questions that families may want to ask the education team during an IEP meeting. Let's take some time to talk about IEPs. An IEP is a written document for a student with a disability between the ages of 3 and 26 years old who receives special education programs and related services. For families coming from early on, an IEP may be written as early as 2 years and 6 months of age. The IEP is a legal document which must reflect a determination of the child's disability, strengths, and needs, include appropriate accommodations, supports, and modifications, contain measurable goals and objectives that address the child's unique needs, determine the least restrictive setting in which the child's IEP can be implemented, and reflect an offer of FAPE with notice. There are some important things you should know. The IEP must be reviewed at least annually. Parents or teachers can request an IEP meeting at any time if they feel there are concerns about the student's progress, changes in needs, or the effectiveness of the current plan. You are considered an equal member of the IEP team. This means that your concerns need to be addressed and that you are involved in decisions related to the special education services your child will receive. Evaluations provide information and data that will be used by the team to identify your child's educational and functional performance needs. And remember what we said earlier, LRE is also an IEP team decision. When developing your child's IEP, your input related to your child's strengths and what helps your child learn, as well as your child's weaknesses and what gets in the way of learning, is important, and it should be shared with the team. You should understand the skills and/or behaviors your child will be learning, their goals and objectives, as well as how often you will receive progress reports. Parents should be involved in the discussion for the need for accommodations or modifications, as well as the amount of services the child will receive. Once the IEP has been developed and finalized with a signature by the school district representative, it is considered the district's offer of FAPE. It is okay to take the time to read over the IEP, and it's okay to ask for a continuation meeting to address your concerns. Michigan Alliance for Families is your guide to all things special education, and we have a lot of wonderful information on the IEP process. Let's talk about some of the ways we help families better understand the child's IEP. We understand that just like our children, we all learn differently and process information in our own way. For those families that prefer to learn by reading, we encourage you to visit our website, www.michiganallianceforfamilies.org, where you can find a host of resources on the IEP process. You can find information by using our search bar, the Investigate functionality, or by the group tabs in the navigation pane. You'll notice that we have a specific tab for special education resources with a section called IEP Topics. Here you'll find information on the different components of the IEP. You'll also find a link to the Family Matters sheet. These are single-page, front and back, fact sheets that explain special education laws and practices related to a specific topic. The documents are easy to read and give links to more in-depth resources. The Family Matters on IEPs can be found on our handouts page. For our families that are audio learners, I encourage you to visit the Videos tab on our website. All our recorded videos are organized by topic, and many of them are broken down by chapters, so you can always stop 10 minutes in and come back to the information when you are ready. For the videos specific to IEPs, look for that section. Though, you may want to check out some of the videos on advocacy, knowing your rights, behavior, or even dispute resolution. If you loved today's webinar and you're interested in attending more live trainings, I encourage you to visit the Calendar tab on our website. These trainings are all provided at no cost to families, and the majority are offered virtually. At the top of the page is a one-page PDF that can be printed out so you can tape it to your bathroom mirror for a daily reminder of what's coming up. Not all of our trainings are recorded, so we do our best to make sure that we offer them on different days and at different times throughout the year. If you are very eager to learn more about the IEP process, I encourage you to investigate our Empowering Parents IEP course. This course was created to help parents learn how to improve the quality of their contributions to their child's IEP and increase their effectiveness when addressing concerns using the IEP process. The IEP course includes assignments to apply the class information to your child's IEP. Now, we also understand that sometimes you have questions that are difficult to describe or that are complicated, involving different factors, maybe many layers, or sometimes you want to run an idea by someone. Maybe you have questions about the objectives on your child's goal for potty training, or maybe you have concerns over consistent delays with transportation, causing less time in the classroom. These are all wonderful opportunities for reaching out to your regional parent mentor. Our parent mentors live in the areas they cover, and they have firsthand experience navigating the special education system, offering guidance and providing support. You can reach out to them through a text, email, or phone call. One of the fantastic options they offer is the chance to do an IEP review with you, where they will look through your child's IEP to help answer your questions and help you create a list of questions or concerns that you can bring to your team. If you have not already, I highly suggest that you reach out to your parent mentor and introduce yourself. Our parent mentors can also help review your rights so that you can best advocate for your child. Procedural safeguards are the rights that persons have that protect them in their interactions with federal, state, and local governments. Your school system is a piece of your government. Procedural safeguards inform parents about the rights and protections available under IDEA. At least one time a year, the school must provide parents of a child with a disability a complete explanation of all the procedural safeguards available to them under IDEA. This explanation is called the Procedural Safeguards Notice, and it can be found on your handouts page. There are many different procedural safeguards, including parental consent. Schools are required to obtain parental consent in certain circumstances. Some district actions, such as conducting an evaluation or the initial provision of special education services, require your consent. You're also able to withdraw consent for special education services by doing so in writing. This safeguard protects the rights of parents and ensures that they are fully informed about their child's educational needs and the services being proposed. Prior written notice. Schools must provide parents with a written notice explaining any proposed changes to their child's special education services or placement, along with any reasons for the changes. It is required before the district proposes to take an action, such as implementing or changing an IEP, or states that they will not take a requested action, such as conducting an additional evaluation. This safeguard ensures that parents are aware of decisions and can prepare to participate in discussions or disagree with the change before it occurs. Right to participation in decision making. Parents have the right to be involved in all decisions about their child's education, including the development and review of the Individualized Education Program. Independent educational evaluation. If parents disagree with the school's evaluation of their child, they have the right to request an independent educational evaluation at the school's expense. Dispute resolution. If parents disagree with the school's decision regarding their child's education, there are dispute resolution options, such as mediation or due process hearings. These mechanisms provide a structured way to resolve conflict and ensure that families can advocate for their child's needs. If you have any questions about your rights, I encourage you to find more information on our website. You can also always reach out to your regional parent mentor to discuss your concerns and the options available to you. Parent mentors can provide you with resources and, in certain instances, make referrals. And that is all for today. I want to issue a big thank you to everyone for joining me. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your regional parent mentor. Michigan Alliance for Families is here to support you. You can find us online on Facebook or Instagram, or take a peek at our YouTube channel. For more information, visit our website, www.michiganallianceforfamilies.org. And with questions, you can reach out to your parent mentor. If you're not sure who that is, give us a call at 1-800-552-4821 and we'll help put you in touch. Michigan Alliance for Families is an IDEA grant-funded initiative of the Michigan Department of Education, Office of Special Education, the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement and Potential, and Michigan's Federal Parent Training and Information Center, funded by the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Special Education Programs.